to talk about Apache Zeppelin and its roadmap and what's best for. I just been introduced, but let me repeat. So I'm a co-founder of ZEPL and a creator of Apache Zeppelin. And please interrupt me. There will be a time for the question and answer in the end, but if you have a question, just interrupt me anytime and as much as possible. So even just off topic, anything is okay. So today I think I'm going to talk about some community and project update. I will start from it and some recent improvements and new features that latest release have, and talk about future roadmap. And I think we will spend more time on the future roadmap side than what we have right now. But please just interrupt me and throw your idea and questions. So latest release is 0.8. Before we start, can I ask a couple of questions? So how many people here knows Apache Zeppelin? Okay. How many people uses Apache Zeppelin on your work? Okay. How many people have contributed to the project before? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, I think I have lots of work to do today. And okay, so community side. Let me start from the community. So 0.8 has released on last June, and it's been actually it took a lot of time for 0.8 release from the previous one was 7.3, and that's where the community needs your contribution so we can release faster. So anyway, so upcoming release will be 0.8.1. Which will have some improvements and bug fixes that 0.8 have, and I think we have about 60% of progress on 0.8.1 release, and also from 0.8, Zeppelin have a plugin registry. So visualization is now pluggable, and there is an online registry for it. So I have counted how many visualizations are have been created by users, and we have 24 visualizations created, and it's been it's inside of a public registry, and 45 interpreters and 10 spells. Spell is another extension that Zeppelin have. And we, in the community, we have 17 committers and around more than 100 Jira issues resolved in last 3 months. That's where this open source community is and how we are moving at the moment. And let me highlight some, few important improvements that I think it's good to know for 0.8. And I think the biggest one is Zeppelin now have a proper Python interpreter. So before it was a little buggy, or some feature didn't work, or it wasn't really perfect on the Python side. But now not only Spark and Scala support, which is great, but Python have a good Python interpreter is actually totally rewritten. Thanks to Jeff Zhang. Jeff worked really hard on this, and actually a lot of improvements on 0.8. Jeff Zhang worked on the improvements, and now Zeppelin's Python interpreter uses IPython kernel, just like Jupyter does. So Jupyter user will probably are comfortable with using Zeppelin for their Python work. And to do that, you need to install a couple of libraries. Then if the libraries are missing, then Zeppelin fall back to the old buggy Python interpreter. So you need to install some necessary libraries, IPython, Jupyter client, IPykernel. and then Zeppelin will detect those libraries and automatically default configuration is turning this new interpreter on. So it should work. That's, I think, one big one. Another one is a conf interpreter, which enables inline configuration of your environment. So let's say you have you have a Zeppelin instance which is shared by multiple people in your team, and you have an administrator who configured all the interpreter on your Zeppelin instance. But you don't want to change the configuration because it will change every other people's work too. But you want to have a slightly different configuration for particular nodes or particular users. In that case, you can easily override the configuration inside of Node 2. This is, I think, really cool. So let me give a demo of it. So let's say I want to change the Spark application name, or I want to change some interpreter configuration, or if even I can set environment variable, like let's say I want to read data from, let's say I want to read data from S3 storage, and then I need S3 credential. So this is not real environment variable, but anyway, you can set your credentials here, your any configurations here. So it's a really quick, just easy way to override the configuration for particular node 2. And yeah, I think it's really cool. So this is, I think, one really useful improvement. And another one is node level dynamic form. So have you anyone tried dynamic form before? Anyone? Okay, then let me show you a dynamic form. Maybe. Oops. So dynamic form is initially it's designed to help data scientists or data engineers work with non-technical people. So let's say you are okay with modifying query, you are okay with editing the Python code or Scala code with Spark API, you have no problem. But your friends in your team, your people in the marketing team in your company is not really comfortable with editing the SQL. So in that case, I wanted to give some, because I can share the notebook, but I'm sure people without knowledge of this query or API will call me and ask can you change this number a little bit or something. So in that case, I can create a let's say I have a filtering rule here. Filtering rule here, but I wanted to make it changeable by non-technical people. Then I can just create a dynamic form in this way, and then once it's been shared, oops. Oh, where is my form? Oh, okay, yeah, I've been lost. So then anybody doesn't have to understand the query or API, but able to change some. So this is really cool, but it was only able to create a dynamic form in this paragraph level. Not the form is not applied to entire node 2. So point 8, there is a feature improvements that now we have a dynamic form in a node 2 level. So if you use $2 here. $1 makes all the paragraph level dynamic form, but $2 create a notebook level form. That variable applies to all the paragraph in the notebook. So you can create a filter here or search keyword in the top of the notebook, and user will just change the value here and run the notebook. Then every paragraph will be updated with this value. So this is another quick way to interact with, I think, other team, or especially non-technical people, I think. So this is another improvement. And other improvements is Helium. So 0.7 release already had a Helium, but didn't have an online registry for it. So 0.8 now official online registry for plugin features. Okay, it's a little confusing, but so Zeppelin have a some built-in visualizations, but we've got a lot of requests that can we extend it? Can we have a more visualization? Can we have a different visualization? So, and demands for different visualization was huge. So we decided to make visualization pluggable. So pluggable architecture was in a previous release, but last release, what Zeppelin introduced was the Helium registry, online registry. So you can create your visualization, and it's just a regular NPM package. And if you publish your NPM package, it automatically appears on this Zeppelin Helium registry website. So if I go to the website, there is a Helium menu, and I can actually see available packages. Let me filter by visualization. Then we have some extra visualization you can actually install. And if you have a Zeppelin instance, 0.8, then you can go to Helium menu. And if there is something you want to install, then, this is one. Yeah, if you want to install this one, then just click enable and OK. That will download and install additional library on your Zeppelin instance. And then I have 4 packages I have installed, and I can change it on order a little bit. And then if I go to my notebook and see a visualization, then they are in extra visualizations installed by Helium. So this way you can create more visualization for your team. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so there are some updates that I'd like to highlight from the previous release, but there are actually a lot of changes, and if you are using previous release like 0.7, I recommend you go to the website and check what's new and what has been updated. So there are actually a lot of changes, and I think I forgot one important change I need to mention, which is in a previous release, if you are using Zeppelin in your daily work, one really annoying thing or unpredictable thing is when you click run all paragraph, run notebook button, basically, the order of execution seems really random, right? In a previous release, especially you are mixing Python and shell interpreter and Markdown and Spark, the execution order seems like random, but it wasn't actually random. Previous release, it was the policy was trying to run as parallel as possible. But in the same interpreter, for example, let's say your notebook have 2 Python paragraph, 2 shell script paragraph, then previous 0.7 release runs Python paragraph sequentially and shell script paragraph sequentially, but those 2 different interpreters are running in parallel. So you already feel like it's complicated. It's not intuitive to understand how your notebook is going to be executed. So point A release, it became really simple, just sequential one by one from the top to bottom. So you don't have to worry about how it's going to be scheduled. It's just simple top to bottom execution. And this is a really simple change, but I think I was surprised at how many people wanted to how many people want to have these changes. So that one was, I think, it was big, and I'd like to move on to the actually future roadmap from here. But before I move on, so far, does anyone have any questions so far? Like a last improvements or so? Am I too fast? Not too fast? Okay. Or I've seen few people here not really familiar with Zeppelin, but I kinda didn't do some basic introduction to the Zeppelin because I see more people already somehow know what's Zeppelin. But if you're not getting the idea, just raise your hands and throw the question. So there are a couple of plans, future roadmap for future version. But before I jump on the future roadmap, because this is an open source project, it's open to everyone. So I have an idea for the future version. That's why I'm talking about the future, what's it going to be look like. But if you have your idea what Zeppelin should look like in the future, you can actually apply your idea here because it's an open community. You can always jump in the community, and you can drive the community. So it's very wide open. So I would say this is my view of the future. It might be a little different from what's going to be actually happen. I have actually an experience. It was early days of Zeppelin. When it's got some massive adoption. It was a version around 0.5 or 0.6. So at the time, I kind of summarized the future roadmap. There were almost 20 bullet items, and I published it. This is going to be the future roadmap, and even documented in the wiki. So I was thinking that's going to be 0.6, but actual 0.6 release was maybe 10% of feature was in my roadmap, something from my roadmap, but the rest of the features or improvements was actually I've never thought about before because people contributed something I haven't really imagined before. So that's something I'm expecting from everyone here in the future. But now let me talk about a little bit of my idea, what's going to help the community. So one is Zeppelin on Kubernetes. Actually, a couple of days ago, I have created the issue and trying to make a progress here. But the basic idea is run Zeppelin on the Kubernetes cluster. And I'm assuming people here kind of know what Kubernetes is doing, right? Kubernetes is orchestrating the container or provide a container service. So running Zeppelin inside of Kubernetes actually it's just it's the concept everyone would understand, unless except for Zeppelin runs some computing work inside of it. So Zeppelin have a notebook and a web interface. That's things need to run inside of cluster, but user create a job inside of Zeppelin, right? That also I think it's a good idea to make that job run as a Kubernetes part. So this is a basic idea that how it's going to be look like. So Zeppelin is going to run as a pod inside of Kubernetes. And if Zeppelin is running as a pod, Zeppelin can detect if it is running inside of Kubernetes or not. So if it is running inside of Kubernetes, when Zeppelin runs interpreter, such as Python interpreter or Shell interpreter, Spark interpreter, it should run interpreter not as a local process, but as a Kubernetes pod. So that's the basic idea. So to do that, Zeppelin actually have internally, it's got two interpreter launcher. So interpreter launcher is the component responsible for creating the interpreter. So basically, it creates an interpreter as a local process. If you are using a Zeppelin, you run Python, you run Notebook, you will see a lot of additional process created in your machine. So that's what this guy does. But if we need to create another interpreter launcher, which is Kubernetes interpreter launcher. So when Zeppelin detects itself running inside of Kubernetes, then uses Kubernetes interpreter launcher instead of the regular one. So interpreter is running as a pod inside of a Kubernetes. So that's the basic idea. So communication between Zeppelin server and the interpreter is through the using Kubernetes service. So that's how it's supposed to work. So it's not going to be very difficult except for the Spark one. So because of Spark is a little different. So Python or Shell interpreter just run as a it's just a single container can take all the job. But Spark, we want to have a cluster for process its data. So not only Spark interpreter need to be created as a pod, but also Spark cluster the interpreter want to connect to, want to be on the Kubernetes cluster. So fortunately, Zeppelin project, Zeppelin community don't have to handle all of that because of Spark community already managed to do that. So since Spark 2.2, there is a capability that you can use Spark submit command, but run actually not only submit your job, but also at the same time that command actually able to create a Spark cluster inside of Kubernetes cluster, and then submit your job to those cluster. So Spark 2.2, as far as I remember, that was it. The experimental version has included Spark on Kubernetes, and 2.3 have a slightly different commands, but basically it works too. And 2.4 also have it. So once Zeppelin runs Spark interpreter in a Kubernetes pod, then here the same story. It can detect if it is running inside of a Kubernetes pod, and then configure its Spark submit command to create a Spark cluster inside of a Kubernetes cluster. That's it. Instead of connecting to your cluster on Yarn or standalone somewhere, so instead of doing that, we can configure Spark submit command to create a new cluster inside of Kubernetes. So that's how it's going to look like, and I think there are some benefits of it. So one is multi-tenancy. I've been hearing a lot of kind of complaints about Zeppelin. Zeppelin, when I see users, they say, "Oh, Zeppelin is good, it's cool, but it's unstable." That's it. I think I hear that a lot, and there are many different reasons why it's unstable. And I think this is one of the reasons, because the one reason why user may feel it's unstable or it is actually unstable is that all the interpreters are running inside of the same host, and it makes a lot of problem. For example, if you are running a large job, you've got out of memory exception because your single machine memory is not infinite, so it's got out of memory exception, but user don't know what exact cause is. Just user may feel is that just job randomly fails, or sometimes it hangs. That's one possible reason. Another one is a user can screw up the other user's work. So let's say I create a file, intermediate file in the local file system, and other user actually able to access it and remove it. So I may feel like, oh, I think I ran this job, but the result, intermediate results, it disappears. So that's also the one scenario that I'm seeing a lot. So if container, if interpreter is running inside a pod, it provides a multi-tenancy and isolation, right? So it actually helps, helps user experience, better stability. I think overall better experience on the software. And another one is of course scalability, because it's not running inside of everything on your computer, but Kubernetes is scalable, and your interpreter is now not running on the single machine, but your interpreter can all over the cluster. So that's I think another benefit. And another last one is security. I think I mentioned. So each interpreter have their own isolated environment. No one else can see your intermediate file. No one else can read your memory. So it's more secure. So I think it's got some a lot of benefits. But I'm curious actually. So how many do you also see this is going to be benefit for your work, or is it you already have a solution different way you already deal with it, or what do you think? Is it going to help?
Yeah, we already have had something like this, but if it comes from you, then it's probably more easier for us to manage this than
Okay.
especially in an enterprise setting, we do need Kubernetes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I actually I've seen a lot of companies. When I visit some companies, actually tech companies mostly, when I visit tech companies, they internally have a developer portal or data science portal or something like that. And most of the large companies does have it, and they built in-house solution to do it. So they have a notebook infrastructure in their developer portal or data science portal, and data science login, and go there and click and then spin up a container that includes a notebook. So that's I think a lot of companies already have, but I think they put tons of engineering resources to build that environment in-house, because they also have to combine and modify all the open source components. So I think if we have this capability built in, it will benefit a lot, I think. And one of my plan was is make it as simple as possible to use. So just kube ZEPL apply the file, spec file, and that's the only thing you need to do, unless you want to some customization, like mount your additional volume in your container or modify something. Unless you want to do that, just single command will enable Zeppelin run on the Kubernetes. That's the goal. Want to be there. So far it's currently in development, and actually you can participate the design. So it's early stage. So if you have a good idea on what's Kubernetes and how it's supposed to work, and you have your thought it's going how it should be, then you can actually jump in this Jira issue, and you can share your idea. You can provide a design. You can provide an implementation. You can just provide a use case. You can actually participate in the community and work together. So if you are interested in this, making Zeppelin running on the Kubernetes, this is where you can check and you can jump in. And there is another big chunk that we can actually improve. So we have seen, just a few minutes ago, where is it? We've seen this built-in visualization feature. Of course, you can, if you like a Matplotlib in Python or ggplot in R, you can use that library inside of Notebook. But I don't want to use, for example, I don't want to use Python API to create a simple pie chart. I just wanted to pick charts. Then built-in visualization is really useful. But there is actually a big limitation on this built-in visualization. This is really cool. You can just print some table data and Zeppelin automatically shows some buttons, and you can, it's got a simple pivot capability built in. So it's really cool. But there is a big limitation, big limitation. So does anyone knows what's the limitation of it? Zeppelin's visualization framework have a big limitation, and anyone? Okay. So it's really cool actually. I hesitate to say share the limitation of it, but first it's really cool. Some limitation is this diagram describes what's limitation and where this limitation coming from. So let's say I ran a query, and that query, I wrote the query in the browser, and I pressed the run button, and that query goes to the Zeppelin server, and then the query passed to the interpreter, and the interpreter actually run the query, for example, submit a job into the Spark cluster and get the results, and then that part is interesting. So interpreter got a query result, let's say from Spark cluster, and then interpreter have a result set, the data, and what Zeppelin is doing right now is passing entire data set into the Zeppelin server, and then again passing entire data set into the browser on its HTTP or WebSocket response, and then browser renders the data, or browser transform the data. We have a pivot function, so browser transform the data and render that with the visualization library. So this is really cool, but as you can probably see, this is very limited because all the data need to be transferred from interpreter to the browser. That means you cannot handle like even 1 gigabyte of data. It's not a huge data, but it's almost impossible to load inside of a browser and handle it. So this is one big limitations. Built-in visualization only works very well with a small set of data, not large set of data. So this one, if we can tackle this problem and make it work very well smoothly with a large set of data, it will be really cool. So I can share some, so this is a problem. If I summarize this problem, entire data set need to be transferred to the front end. So it takes actually, it also time takes a lot if data is big, but also the size of data, amount of data Zeppelin can address is limited by browser's memory, browser's CPU. So cannot actually handle large set of data in this way. So one possible improvement is move pivot or transform logic from the front end here to the Zeppelin server side. So again, I run the query, and this Spark interpreter, let's say, got the result from the Spark cluster. And then it transfer all the data to the Zeppelin server, but Zeppelin server now transform this data. For example, depends on how you transform. The result can be just an aggregation, the count of a unique value of the field. So your data can be like 100 megabytes or 1 gigabyte or even bigger, but your transformed result can be like just 10 lines of rows. So transform first here and then pass the data into the browser, and browser now have to handle much smaller data set, and it really helps the browser. And another advantage is that we can get here is compared to actually the current one, the problem is the data, output data is actually shipped with notebook data. So let's say I have modified a notebook, or I have changed the notebook title, and then notebook data is fetched from the server. That includes the entire result data set in the notebook. So even you changed one thing, but it fetches a lot of data from the server to the browser. So this one, we can not only move the transformation logic to the backend, but also we can split the data channel. Notebook doesn't contain the data, but data is being requested in the separate channel. So in that way, even if we modify notebook a lot and notebook's got already huge amount of result data set, it doesn't impact the performance. So this is one first step we can do to improve this, but we can I think we can do further, because we still we have to copy the data from interpreter to the Zeppelin server, and especially we are trying to put interpreter in the remote location, like I just mentioned that Kubernetes. In that case, the interpreter will be connected, will running on the remote server somewhere in the Kubernetes cluster, and data transfer is going to be more slow in that case. So we can even move this transformation logic further down to the interpreter. So better, more improved version will look like this. So interpreter have a transform capability. So as soon as data is being returned from the Spark cluster, for example, and then interpreter transform the data and pass it to the front end, all the way to the front end. And we can even have a further improvement on that. Actually, we can push down all the operators required to the pivot or transform down to the actual processing engine. So in that case, we can implement the pivot or transformation function using the Spark API, and then actual transformation will be done in the Spark side, and then Zeppelin will get only the result, and everything is now very lightweight. So this is, I think, one idea that how we can overcome the limitation of Zeppelin's visualization component or infrastructure. So I can imagine once we have these kind of improvements or new framework to handle visualization, then it becomes more like a small data processing engine inside of Zeppelin. More like we see most of the BI tool like Tableau have a internal simple data processing capable engine or similar one. So I can see in this way Zeppelin might have the similar layer for processing data. So this is, I think, one big chunk. And actually, I searched the community if there is a related work, and I kind of discovered there is actually a superset of this plan. So there is a proposal. The proposal is in Zeppelin Wiki, which has been made more than a year ago. It's very complicated one, but actually it includes these improvements. So if you are interested, I will share this slide. So if you are interested in this area, let's say, I'm interested in overcome this now Zeppelin have a visualization layer, have a limitation because everything is transferred to the front end side, and transform is done in the JavaScript side. This is crazy. I cannot live with this crazy code. Then this is where you can jump in, and you can actually make these things beautiful so we can handle the largest set of data inside of Zeppelin. So this is where you want to reach if you are interested in this topic. And actually, once once it's done, I think we will have a really good a lot of benefit will be generated by this improvement because of now data fetch pipeline and notebook fetch pipeline is need to be separated in this to do that. That means you don't have to refresh the notebook to refresh the data. At the moment, you have to refresh the notebook to refresh the data. If that's not necessary, that means streaming data is really easy to handle after we have done this. So I think it will give a lot of other benefits to the people too. Yeah, that's one thing, and another one is this is a simple and fun thing to do, and one day I've got a question. So Zeppelin's visualization is now pluggable through the Helium framework and Helium online registry, and we can install more visualization. User can create a new visualization and publish. So visualization, we can extend it, and why not extend some of Zeppelin's features? And actually, I was very surprised that once let me search this TOC. Yeah, I was very surprised with this plugin because of there is actually, I didn't explain in detail about the spell. Spell is another pluggable component like visualization, but it's designed to implement a simple interpreter that works in a front-end side. So Zeppelin, if you want to have a new language like a Python, you have to implement your new interpreter in a JVM language, and you have to build the library and deploy the library and load the library to use it. So that's it, powerful, but that's it kind of annoying if you want to just make a really simple one. Like let's say I want to have an interpreter that I can just write text in English that translate into Korean or Japanese. So I want to make that simple thing that's just called the Google Translation API, but I don't want to deal with create a new Java project and build build infrastructure and build compile it and deploy it. In that case, you can use a spell. That's just a simple way to create a new interpreter in the front-end side, and you can actually deploy it just like a visualization. But it was designed to create a new interpreter in the front-end side. But I was very surprised. Some people create actually extension feature based on using this spell. So was designed to extend, actually starting to extending Zeppelin in hacky way. So why not we have a the way, actual way, without hacking, a way to extend Zeppelin in these use cases. So that's what I think sidebar and a widget inside of sidebar can do. Actually, let me share another service. How many people actually tried Colab? I think many people here knew Colab, right? Google Colab. And one thing I really like inside of Colab is this sidebar actually. And they got table of contents. I think table of contents is one of the most popular feature, because I've seen even a user that I wanted to switch from Jupyter to Zeppelin, but without table of contents, I cannot do that. So I've seen actually multiple of those users. I'm not sure why it's so important, this table of contents, but I think it maybe to the data scientists, I'm sure I can see it's really important. So I really like this table of contents on the side, and they have some couple of other widgets in their sidebar, so I can copy those code snippets. I can download and upload the file here. So I think this really helps the notebook experience. Oh, here. So why not Zeppelin have a sidebar just like a Colab or any other notebook have. So we have a sidebar, but this is not static sidebar, but pluggable sidebar. So user actually can create their own widget and publish it, so other user can use it. So nothing, nothing new. It's just a sidebar and it's widget. But some idea of widget is, of course, the first one will be a table of contents, because this is really what people want. And another one is another thing that I can imagine is listing the table available. For example, let's say I'm using a Spark interpreter and I register some table in my Spark cluster, and then Spark interpreter can actually get a list and send that list to the front end, so table data widget can display the what table you have, you can use, and even you click the table and show the schema or preview. That's also possible. So we can extend the widget in this way, or drag and copy paragraph, drag and drop clipboard. So you can drag a paragraph here and switch it to another notebook and drag copy the paragraph back to new notebook. So it's got, I think, a lot of potential and possibility. Depends on your imaginations. And of course, widget can be on Helium online registry, so anyone can create, and anyone can publish, anyone can install other people's contribution. And if this is where your strength is, I'm trying to recruit people to the community. So if you are let's say I'm a really good front engineer and I'm looking for something fun and something that impacts a lot of users, and want to see the framework you have created being used by other people, not only being used, but they add something, they add some application, or they make some component based on top of your framework. That's what you want to see, what you want to try. Then this is, I think, the area you can jump in. So I actually can see in previous Zeppelin history, in the beginning, interpreter wasn't pluggable. But as soon as the interpreter becomes pluggable, I see a lot of people jump in and start to create more interpreters. And visualization wasn't pluggable in the beginning, but now pluggable, and I see people starting to create new visualization. And I'm sure if you create a sidebar here and make widget inside of sidebar pluggable, then you will also see people will start use your framework to extend its feature. So if you are interested in this area and you are good with front end technologies, then this is I think a really fun subject you can take actually. And there are actually a lot of other ideas too, and there are a lot of other ideas. But one thing, speaking of front-end side, so Zeppelin is now still uses Angular JS, version 1. This is at the time, year 2014. It was a modern framework, which people call Zeppelin at that time. Oh, this is a modern notebook compared to IPython notebook at that time, because Zeppelin uses a much modern, newer technology to implement it. But now it's out of date. The framework Zeppelin uses are considered ancient, like Stone Age. So if you're passionate about, I cannot see any project uses those ancient framework, then this is good place. You can completely wipe out the old code and build new clean fun code using modern framework like React or Vue, or I'm sure there is even newer and better one out there. So this is actually to keep Zeppelin progress in the future. I think this is actually one very important thing. Someday, sooner or later, Zeppelin community need to deal with it. And this is actually, something sooner or later need to deal with it. And another one is code assist. So Zeppelin have a basic code completion feature, but it's really basic, too basic. So nothing advanced compared to Jupyter or other product. I have to admit the code assist is not better than other products. So this is it. But for the people who daily uses Zeppelin or every single hour my work, I'm on the Zeppelin. For those people, code assist is really, really important. It changes your productivity like a lot, right? So for those people, this is like a life and death or the difference is huge. So bringing enhanced or more smart code assist, intelligent code assist is one thing that actually really good to have. And in the community, actually some community members, contributors and committers, they have different talents. Somebody is really passionate on the front-end side and good at front-end side. Somebody, the back-end side, somebody have tons of knowledge on the Sparkless, how Zeppelin need to integrate with. But we don't have a lot of people have knowledge on this intelligent code assist, how it can be implemented, to have a better code assist. So if you have some experience or knowledge on that, this is a good place to have. And the third one is dark theme. And developers, software engineers like dark theme. And I didn't know data scientists also like it. So dark theme is, I think if you are, if you have some sense on the design and user experience, and then give us some CSS file that changes all the look and feel to the black or dark. So this is, I think, also a dark theme is fun to do, I guess. And here are some more serious topics. So one complaint I have got a lot from the users is, notebook, I cannot do any important job inside of notebook because of I cannot see who changes it. I don't see who changes it. So I can understand that problem. So notebook is good. You can quickly create something. You can access control it. Actually, in Zeppelin, you can give a permission. This user can have a write. The user only have a read permission. But if you have two or more people have a write permission, you actually have no idea who changes what. So I don't have a. That one was actually blame note changes. Yeah, another item. Anyway, so I don't have any detailed design or how it's going to be look like if we have a blame features inside the notebook, because of any notebook out there in the market, I never seen the notebook have this capability. So this is like designing, new feature that nobody in the industry have. So if you are like a person who can come up with this is suppose who have a lot of experience in your data science and what is supposed to look like, then actually this is where the place where you can contribute the design. In Zeppelin, actually we've got contribution previously, not only a code contribution but design contribution too. Some people contribute the design. So if you have a good idea, then you can just this if we design product in this way and add some buttons here and have some API here, and then we will have a blame feature inside of notebook. That's it where you can participate if you have an idea on this. I see the problem, but I don't have an answer. So this is I think a fun area. Another one is making notebook or paragraph testable. This is also related. People starting on put their work on the notebook, and in the first it's good because the notebook is easy to start. You can just create a notebook and write a code and run and see the result. You don't have to create a project. You don't have to set up a CI server. You don't have to do a lot of complicated stuff that software engineer, normal software engineering project required. But as your notebook gets more and more serious, it becomes closer and closer to the production. You need, more and more stuff. Like I wanted to know who to blame, for example, or I want to know if this code actually is safe or not. In the software engineer, if you are a software engineer, it's very common to have a test case, automated test. But notebook doesn't have automated test, or at least doesn't have a framework for the automated test. So I'm not sure if there is something, but I'm almost, as far as I know, there is no test framework designed for the notebook or this use case. So this is also an area that if you have some idea, in particular case like data science notebook, automated tests need to be written in this way, and framework need to be look like this. That's where you can go, I guess. And the last item I have is packaging notebook or notes and deploy it into the production. This is, I think, a huge topic. And every time I go to a meetup or conference, I've got tons of these questions, especially this year and last year. So I think it's basically because of now more and more companies are using machine learning on their work, and once they made their model, it was maybe last year or 2 years ago, all the company was focusing on making a model, how to build the infrastructure for that, or how to work to make a model. And now companies are many companies are actually making a progress. So not only they are working on not only making a model, but actually using it on their service. They are looking for how to manage the model and how to deploy the model, how to productize the model that data science worked on their notebook. So this is, I think, also a very big area and not well developed. Although I see a lot of companies are jumping in this area, but I still see there are many different open sources to designed to serve machine learning models. Still, new open source projects are burning to solve more, machine learning models. And there is a framework that uses those those machine learning serving infrastructure to build serving infrastructure. So there is a project to do that, and there will be an interface to that connect to all these model deployment and serving infrastructure in the end. But yet I see some commercial product that does that, but there is no open source actually doing that. Facebook or Uber, they publish how they do internally using their through their blog and article, but they actually haven't published their own open source internally used. So this is, I think, another area that, if you are interested in the machine learning or bringing notebook from the research to the production, I think this is a really actually big, really hot area at the moment, right now. So these are some other ideas I think anyone in this room can jump in. So actually this is what I have prepared is until this page is the last page, and I have a link to the address to the mailing list and Jira and GitHub. But let me explain a little bit about how it works. They are mailing list and Jira and GitHub, so nothing to explain. They are, every day you use, but let me explain how those work in the open source community and why you need to use them to participate. So I think it depends on its software open source community. Maybe each community have different ways to work, different policies to work, different ways to communicate. But at least in Zeppelin project, mailing list, we have two mailing lists, user and dev mailing list. And mailing lists are mostly for questions and answers. Let's say I have a question. I installed Zeppelin, but it doesn't run. It throws an error in my computer. And then mailing list is a place you want to go and throw the question. Or I'm using Zeppelin and I'm curious. This is possible to connect Zeppelin to somewhere that nobody tried before. And then mailing list is a place you can go and ask a question. Then somebody will pick your question and answer. So mainly Zeppelin community mailing lists are question and answers, but also discussions. For example, let's say you wanted to pick one of the topic here today, and you have a great idea, and you wanted to discuss with people about your idea. Then mailing list, you create a new thread, and then people will comment about your idea or raise their hands to participate and work together. So mailing list is mainly for discussion, question and answers, and of course some important decisions in the community. All the votes is in the mailing list, and actually you can also participate the vote. Let's say community is voting for the new release, and then you can go there and I'm +1 for this release, or you can say -1, you shouldn't release that this release. So you can to release this one, you must have this feature built in. So you can actually vote. You will, if you are committer, you will have a binding vote. You are not committer, you will have non-binding vote. But Zeppelin community actually respects non-binding votes as almost just like a binding vote. So especially -1 is really strong. So your opinion will never get ignored if you are voting -1 vote. That's really important feedback. So that's what mailing list does, and Jira is where you found a bug and where you want to file a bug. So you yourself or other people can check the bug or track the progress of some development. GitHub is of course if you have a fixes, improvements, or new feature. If you are considering code contribution, that's where you want to go. But another one thing that you can do in GitHub is actually review. So Zeppelin community actually have a less reviewer than the code contributor. That means there are a lot of codes that has been contributed just waiting for the review because we don't have enough reviewer. We have more committers, more code contributors. So if you are too busy to making a code and write a test and you test, you are too busy to that, but you want to engage with something on the open source project with the code, then you can go to the GitHub and press the pull request tab, and then you can actually comment any pull request. Oh, this you better add new test. You better write code this way. So you can actually, no one will say, oh, who are you? Why you are commenting to my pull request? No one will say. Everyone will be appreciated on your reviews. So that's another way you can participate in the community. And yeah, this is actually last pages. So yeah, this is all I have prepared today. And anyone have any questions?
By the way, I've got the microphone here, so if there's questions, raise your hand, I'll pass the microphone. And Moon, remember to repeat that question just for the audience that's being recorded right now on the video and stuff. So any questions, guys? Really? After almost 2 hours, no questions, come on.
Okay, a quick question. What's the main advantage for Zeppelin over Jupyter Notebook?
So the question is, what's the main advantages of Zeppelin over Jupyter?
Yeah.
And I've got that question more than, I think, 200 times, 300 times over the last couple of years. And one short answer is of your preference, like Emacs versus Beam, or VS Code versus IntelliJ. You use what you like, right? I also use Emacs and Beam at the same time. I use Beam for editing some type of file. I use Emacs for editing another type of file. I use VS Code for my JavaScript project. I use IntelliJ for my Java project. So I use a bunch of different tools, and I guess it's kind of similar. It's up to the user's preference. If I like Zeppelin more, somehow, I don't know the reason, then you can stick to the Zeppelin. If you like Jupyter more, then Zeppelin is your tool, because basically the functionality of these two tools are actually the same. So the basic functionality is the same. So you can do whatever you want using those two tools. But of course, there are some differences. So Zeppelin, for example, have a built-in visualization where Jupyter doesn't have. And Jupyter have a smaller footprint, for example, while Zeppelin have a larger footprint, but have a built-in authentication and authorization. So basic notebook functionalities are the same, but some details are different. Some characteristics are different. So it's up to you which advantages are more important to you. If you need a smaller footprint and you don't need any fancy, built-in visualization, then Jupyter is fine for you. But if you have multiple people in your team and wanting to access control your notebook, then Zeppelin is a better tool for you. So I think it depends on your requirement.
Can you save your Zeppelin notebooks in GitHub and use version control from there?
Yeah, the question is, can you save Zeppelin notebook in the GitHub with version control, right? Answer is yes, but yeah, Zeppelin's notebook storage is actually also pluggable. So there are a couple of implementations already. So default implementation that Zeppelin uses is Git repository as a notebook storage. So default notebook storage is Git repository, but it doesn't connect to the remote Git repository by default, because we don't know which remote repository you already have. So if you go to Zeppelin notebook directory and configure the remote repository, then you can actually see Zeppelin is adding a commit on the every time you will, yeah, here is a button actually, and you can make a commit after you edit. This is, for example, the first version, any commit message, and then if you click commit, and then there will be a commit created. So this button only displays when you configure Zeppelin with notebook storage that supports version control, but by default it uses Git, so it will make a commit. But one thing that lacks, or that's missing, is the automatic push. It creates a commit but doesn't push to the remote. So you see where you can make a new pull request, right? That's yeah, the push, we do commit but don't do push. That's one line. So that's where you can make a new pull request, new contribution.
Actually, I've got a question. Is there any work being done on having a preview of Zeppelin notebooks in GitHub, sort of like Jupyter has a preview on GitHub?
Oh, yeah, that's actually a good question. So unless I think GitHub decided to make a Zeppelin notebook, preview feature in their product, which I think it will be a little more complicated than the Jupyter mainly because of built-in visualization. Jupyter, you can generate a static HTML, which is not going to use a lot of different libraries. But Zeppelin, to make that happen, you actually have to import a lot of libraries to built-in visualization work. So I don't I'm not sure I can expect that's going to happen in any time soon in GitHub. I don't have any control on the GitHub, but there are a couple of alternatives that you can use actually. And ZEPL is one of the service. I'm working on ZEPL, and if you go to ZEPL, this is actually a good opportunity to go to our company's website. And if you go to ZEPL and Explorer, then you can just paste your Node2 link there, then you will get a view. Actually, this is Node2 online viewer. So if you have a Node2 link in a GitHub, then paste GitHub file link, just link to the GitHub, then you will see this rendered result. So it's not GitHub provided viewer, but at least if you have a file in the GitHub, then just copy the file link to the website here, then you will see rendered results of Zeppelin Node2. And thanks for asking this question.
Any other questions?
So currently, for example, it doesn't support a sizable data set visualization yet. So currently, how is that going to look like if someone is doing a big-sized data visualization?
The question is Zeppelin currently built-in visualization doesn't handle large set of results data because of we have now all know why it's difficult to handle Zeppelin transfer all the data into the front-end side. So the question is when someone loads a large data set on that built-in visualization, what's going to happen, right? It's a question. So currently we are using very simple solution. Let me show you. So for example, this one. So Python interpreter have a configuration parameter called python.maxResult and 1,000. You can of course change this number to the million or whatever you want, depends on your machine's memory and capability. But basically, this is the limitation, how many records or how many rows will be transferred to the front end. And if the data is larger than this one, data will be truncated, and in the front end side, you will see a message that data is truncated. That's the current solution, which is not beautiful, right? So I'm sure you are going to, you want to improve this one really. Okay.
I think with that we can wrap up the official part.
Yeah.